How the divine reveals miraculous signs, 7 sacred messages from heaven you must hear. In a quaint village nestled among lush, rolling hills, a devoted mother named Margaret kneeled beside her worn couch, breathless in fervent prayer. Each night, she called upon St. Jude, seeking hope for her son Thomas, who battled an all-consuming addiction. The flickering candlelight danced against the chapel walls, illuminating her earnest face, while the congregation wrapped themselves in warmth. But despair swallowed Margaret whole upon receiving the news that Thomas lay in a hospital bed, mere breaths away from the brink of death after a devastating overdose. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she buried her face in her aged Bible. The pages were frayed, like her heart, but in that moment, something miraculous happened. A note, as if slipped from the very hand of God, unfurled itself from between the pages. Its delicate script held 7 sacred messages, each whispering secrets of hope directly to her soul. Trust the unseen. Faith is your compass. You are not alone. Each line pulsated with divine energy, igniting a spark of faith within her that she thought extinguished. Margaret, with unwavering resolve, drenched in divine inspiration, felt an inexplicable warmth radiate from the Bible. The air around her thickened with heavenly presence. Each word seemed to illuminate the dusty corners of her despair. She could hardly believe it. Miracles danced lightly around her heart, even as the skeptics in the village raised their eyebrows, urging her to let go, let Thomas go. Enough! They cried. But Margaret refused. With every letter from the note, she grasped anew the promise of renewal. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The skepticism from friends bit into her spirit, but one night, as Margaret stood in the church, a parishioner rose, lungs bursting with a testimony woven from threads of grace. This beloved brother shared his miraculous healing journey just last month. He had been on death's door but now stood whole in Christ. As his words filled the room, the air shimmered with hope, allowing Margaret's heart to thaw. With each trial, Margaret clutched her Bible tighter. Despair wrestled with her faith, spinning a web of uncertainty. Yet she pressed on, believing that divine intervention could mold Thomas' path anew. As darkness brewed, she approached the altar, lit by flickering candles, her spirit aflame with desperate hope. Just then, her heart raced, for she sensed the 7th message's final revelation hovering on the horizon. Then, as if answering her prayers in the divine theater of life, the door swung open, and there stood Thomas, no longer a shadow of his former self, but a spirit seemingly reborn, cloaked in miraculous grace. The air crackled as Margaret's heart soared, beams of hope bursting forth. Could this be the spark that ignited revival? The entire village would soon feel the reverberation of faith reborn, but unanswered questions loomed. What did this miraculous transformation mean? Would the ripples of divine grace endure, or would doubt once again plague the hearts of those who witnessed it all unfold? Margaret's journey was just beginning, leaving the villagers on the edge of anticipation, yearning for clarity as they stood at the crossroads of faith and fear. As Thomas stepped through the church door, Margaret rushed toward him, her heart throbbing with a blend of relief and disbelief. She held him tightly, feeling the warmth of life blossom within his frail frame. "You're back!" she exclaimed, tears brimming with joyous disbelief. The parishioners whispered among themselves, their faces a mixture of awe and confusion. Some clutched their prayer books, while others fought to steady their trembling hands. Was this the same young man found in darkness, now standing transformed before their very eyes? "Mother," Thomas murmured, his voice soft yet firm, "I had this strange vision. I saw light all around me." Margaret released him just enough to search his eyes. "Oh, my sweet boy," light, she began, overwhelmed. It was what she had prayed for all those sleepless nights. Was it God? Thomas nodded slowly, the remnants of struggle lining his brow. I felt his presence, light filling the void I thought I knew. I understood my journey. It was a choice, but now I choose him. Gasps echoed from the congregation, a ripple of recognition flowing through as many recalled times when they too had glimpsed the divine. This wasn't just about Thomas, it was about hope incarnate. Moments unfolded, as if the heavens were gently aligning their paths for something greater. In that sacred gathering, amid tears and laughter, a spirit of healing began to bloom. A woman from the back stood up, her eyes shimmering with recognition of her own struggles. I lost my way as well. Can we truly be reborn? Her question rang like a bell, a beacon for others who felt the weight of despair. One by one, stories emerged, souls rising from times of need, discovering the light within that had flickered against despair. They began to articulate their prayers, their fears, but with renewed hope in their words. Margaret watched, enchanted and heartened. Her own prayers had reached heights she never envisioned, and here, laid out before her, was a tapestry of collective faith woven by hearts yearning for renewal. As the night deepened, an unexpected calm flooded the church. Candles flickered in gentle response as if heaven itself was nodding in agreement to the power of shared faith. There was a sense that something had shifted in the very fabric of their lives. Margaret knew this was just the beginning. The palpable energy in the air whispered of an unfolding journey, one painted with colors of grace beyond their understanding. What will tomorrow bring? She pondered, her heart aching for answers. Would Thomas's rebirth inspire others? Would the village emerge transformed? As the congregation joined hands, hearts united, Margaret offered a prayer of gratitude, asking for guidance in the coming days. She closed her eyes, envisioning the luxuriant hills that surrounded their village. The stars twinkled like jewels above them, lighting the path ahead. The words flowed from her lips with conviction, Lord, guide us through this wondrous night. May we embrace your light, together as one. But there was almost a weight behind the prayer, and knowing that the depth of their journey would not be without trials. The world outside was still fraught with uncertainty. Would this newfound light endure in a valley that had known darkness? As dawn approached, a ripple of anxiety mingled with joy. Margaret felt a stirring in her chest, the promise of more revelations yet to come. What challenges lay ahead? Would the village's love for each other be tested once more? The answers awaited them, cloaked in divine mystery. The morning sun rose gently over the village, spilling golden light through the stained glass windows of the church. The air felt crisp and fresh, but there was an unmistakable heaviness that lingered. As the first rays of light danced upon the worn pews, Margaret opened her eyes, filled with an expectant hope that pulsed around her. Thomas stood at the front, a figure transformed by faith. He was no longer just a son returned, he was an embodiment of the light he had witnessed. As he turned to face the congregation, it was as if a new kind of energy radiated from him, drawing everyone in. Brothers and sisters, he began, voice steady yet filled with emotion, I feel a fire in my heart. The grace I have received is not just for me, it is for all of us. We are called to be lights in this dark world. Whispers of agreement rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, others wiped away tears, touched by the sincerity of Thomas's words. It was a moment that felt like an ancient melody, bringing forth familiar truths and long-forgotten hopes. Then, old Mr. Wilkins slowly rose from his seat. His eyes glistened with the memory of struggles endured in silence. It's true. I've wandered far from his embrace. I used to think I was beyond redemption, but hearing you, Thomas, it sparked something inside me again. The room held its breath. A burgeoning tension filled the air. Can we embrace change? Came a voice from the back. It was Clara, known for her sharp wit but held captive by fear. What if the pain returns? What if no one stands with us when the storms come? The congregation seemed to hold its collective breath, for Clara's question echoed fears deep within many hearts. Yet Thomas stepped forward, his brow furrowing with compassion. Clara, fear grips us all, but our God is bigger than our storms. I realized in that light that we may stumble, but we do not walk alone. Together, we can stand against the waves. Encouraged by Thomas's strength, a few more voices rose in agreement. Each heart engaged, transforming the air into a warm embrace of shared spirit. Margaret felt something shift within her, a surrendered sense of peace. Let us commit to each other, she said, standing tall, to be the community we've always dreamed of being. We can no longer afford the shadows of despair that divide us. When doubt seeps in, let love and unity remind us of the road back to hope. With every proclamation, the light grew brighter in the room. Soon, projectors of faith became candles of purpose, and they started sharing their visions of renewal. Dreams and plans began to crystallize, as imaginations ignited by the Holy Spirit fueled their passion, yet, even in this vibrant atmosphere, doubts lingered. A family in the corner had weathered their own storms, still clinging to the fears that had shaped their existence. How would they find their way without stumbling again? As if sensing this unease, Margaret turned to the gathered souls once more. We may face trials, but the grace that brought Thomas back to us will keep lighting our path. Let us walk together through the valleys, reach for one another, and trust that his promises will never fail us. The murmurs of amen hummed through the air. Hope had taken root once more, but Margaret couldn't shake the heavy thoughts tugging at her heart. What awaited them when the trial summoned? As they began to share prayers anew, eyes closed and hands held tightly, the tension hung like a comforting embrace. The uncertainty loomed like a shade, weaving through the brewing light. The world outside awaited, still cloaked in the veils of darkness. Would this be enough? Could their bonds hold strong when faced with adversity? Would divine signs mark their journey ahead? The answers loomed like shadows on the horizon, waiting to reveal themselves in the unfolding saga of faith. As they lingered in prayer, a serene hush blanketed the church, wrapping the gathered souls in an intimate cocoon of faith. The weight of their worries began to dissipate, replaced by a vibrant pulse of shared spirit that filled the air, an unseen bond that anchored them amidst rising tides of uncertainty. Margaret felt the warmth radiating from Thomas, as if he carried a hidden treasure of hope that could light their darkest moments. He looked out over the congregation with eyes shimmering, reflecting the gentleness of God's love. Let us open our hearts wider than ever, he invited softly. God does not come to us with heavy burdens. He brings gifts, whispers of destiny, and signs of his unfolding purpose. A collective sigh of resolution echoed, and Clara, still shadowed by fear, hesitated but felt drawn to speak. What kinds of signs? She asked, curiosity and doubt mingling in her voice. How do we know it's truly from him? Old Mr. Wilkins leaned forward, a sparkle in his eyes. I've seen signs in laughter of children, in the beauty of dawn, even in the heartaches that draw us closer to his embrace. Our spirits will be stirred if we dare to believe. Thomas nodded, yes. Signs are often woven into the fabric of our everyday lives. Sometimes, they come dressed in the ordinary, waiting for us to see them clearly. The congregation leaned in closer, captivated by the fire igniting their faith. Thoughts ran wild, visions unwrapped like gifts spilling over with ideas of renewal. Memories began stirring within each heart. They recounted acts of kindness shared in times of despair, moments where they felt a warmth that seemed too divine to explain. Look, Margaret continued, emboldened, we've held each other through the storms before, haven't we? Remember last winter? How, despite the freezing skies, we gathered to help the Johnsons when their roof caved in. That was God, my friends. That was his signature on our love. Absolutely. Clara spoke up, a spark of realization flickering in her eyes. It's in the unexpected hugs and laughter. Every tear that fell he turns them into joy, doesn't he? A murmur of agreement washed over the crowd. Hope danced visibly among them now, pushing out the shadows, for they were beginning to remember. I think Thomas said slowly, the signs are here. What if they are the very things we have taken for granted? Just then, as if to affirm his words, the sun broke through the clouds, casting bright beams through the stained glass. Colors exploded in a dazzling display, each hue reminding everyone of their own stories, lighting up their memories, their struggles, and their triumphs. It felt like a tangible promise that they were not abandoned, hearts were stirred and hands began to clasp one another tightly. Rising from their seats, they wrapped their arms around their neighbors, embracing the warmth of sisterhood and brotherhood. Margaret, filled with passion, raised her voice once more, "Let us be attentive. Let us document the signs of His unfailing love. Each moment that stirs our hearts is a testimony of His goodness. Let Him speak to us, the divine is among us." The congregation echoed their agreement with an enthusiastic amen. But as the fervor surged, a new thought loomed within Margaret's soul. What if the signs weren't just in their midst, but also waiting to unfold in ways they had never imagined? A flicker of uncertainty crept in again. Could they be ready for the signs that required greater courage? Were they prepared to chase after dreams that could shatter the very fears they carried? As they settled once again, embracing prayer close to their hearts, Margaret's spirit echoed with the magnetic pull of anticipation. What heavenly surprises awaited this community eager to step into the light of faith? The lingering question hung in the air, a divine promise just beyond their reach. How would they respond to signs yet unseen, those waiting to unfold in an uncharted journey ahead? The light from the stained glass slowly dimmed, casting a soothing twilight over the congregation. Yet, the spirit that filled the room felt as vibrant as ever, as if the very air was charged with potential. Margaret looked around, seeing faces lit with faith, and their eyes reflected a yearning for something deeper, a hunger to grasp the signs of God's love that danced just out of reach. Suddenly, from the back of the church, young Sarah, a girl of barely 10, stood up. The boldness of her small frame was astonishing. "I see it!" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. "God is in the beauty of the world. He talks to me when I watch the trees sway and hear the birds sing." A hush fell upon the crowd, surprised by the revelation from one so young. Margaret's heart swelled with joy. Yes, indeed. He speaks in ways as simple as a child's laughter. Could we ever learn from such unfiltered wisdom? Nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the congregation, sparking recognition. Clara squeezed the hand of the woman sitting next to her, a newfound understanding flowing between them. "If we just open our eyes, there are signs everywhere." Thomas smiled broadly, his presence exuding warmth. "It's true, Clara. Miracles are often hidden in plain sight. We just have to be willing to look beyond our fears and hesitations." Margaret stepped closer to the altar, feeling a surge of elation. Consider how our worries often blind us. They close our hearts and dim our sight. What if our journey begins with choosing to see? What if we simply look for those very signs we've been yearning for? The congregants nodded eagerly, a unified spark igniting within them. What if she continued, her voice lifting with certainty, "The signs of His presence are woven into our lives even more than we realize. In friendships, in healing, in dreams that refuse to fade despite the darkness." Just then, a low rumble echoed outside, surprising them all. They turned to see dark clouds swirling above, yet in that moment, a ray of sunlight broke through, creating a golden path across the church floor. Clara pointed, "Look! Even nature responds." A reminder that no matter the storm, light will always find a way to break through. Cheers erupted as they witnessed that miracle, the golden light illuminating every corner of the church. Margaret felt tears welling up in her eyes, as each pulse of hope reverberated through their souls. As emotion swelled among them, Thomas chuckled softly. "And what if we took a step further? What if we created a space, invited those outside our walls into this light? Imagine the signs we could share with others. Think of the stories they hold, waiting to unfold, just like we have seen today." The energy was electric. Senses heightened as they considered the implications of such an act of love. Would they stand together to be a beacon of hope for their community? Could they share their experiences of faith to ignite the hearts of others? "I believe we can." shouted old Mr. Wilkins, his eyes sparkling with fervor. Together, we can lift others from shadows to bask in this divine light. Margaret nodded vigorously. She was overwhelmed, not just with tears, but with expectancy. Would they not only witness the signs but become them? The church erupted into affirmations, voices mingling in a heavenly chorus. As they settled back into prayer, a new quietude fell upon them. Each heart spoke of courage and unity, whispering secrets of faith and purpose into the embrace of their shared devotion. But amid this sacred moment, a question lingered in Margaret's mind, pushing her faith deeper. What were the signs yet to come that would call them beyond the familiar? What challenges would arise to test their resolve, and what divine grace awaited their response? As she gazed around at the faces filled with renewed hope, the possibilities felt endless. Could they prepare their hearts for the unexpected journey God was unfurling before them? The congregation remained in a peaceful hush, the atmosphere alive with excitement and longing. Margaret felt the divine presence wrapping around them like a warm blanket, urging them to lean into the moment. It was clear, God was calling, and together they were ready to answer. Let us take this sacred energy outside these walls. Margaret's voice rang clear, igniting the restless spirit of her community. What if we ventured into the very heart of our neighborhood? It is there that we will surely find the hungry, the lost, and those who yearn for a glimpse of hope. The light continued to spill into the church, illuminating the faces of those gathered. They glanced at one another, an unspoken understanding filling the space between them. Everyone felt that the time for action was now. Sarah clapped her hands, a grin spreading across her face. Can we really do that? Share the beauty of God's love outside? With all our hearts. Thomas affirmed, his enthusiasm infectious. Imagine what it could mean for those who have lost their way. Maybe, just like each of us here, they are waiting for someone to show them the path. As the murmurs grew louder, a sense of purpose blossomed. They were no longer simply a group of worshippers, they were a family fueled by faith, ready to step boldly into the world. Clara held her breath, envisioning the faces of those who would join their mission. We'll be like rays of sunshine dispelling the shadows. Margaret gestured toward the altar, where a simple Bible sat waiting. Let us gather our stories, our experiences of love and grace. Each one of us carries a message, let us weave them together. The more we share, the brighter the light will shine. Our signs will blanket this community. Old Mr. Wilkins, his face etched with wisdom, cleared his throat. And what about those who doubt? Those who can't see what we see? The question hung heavy in the air. It was a reminder that faith is often tested, especially in moments of boldness. Margaret paused, feeling the weight of Mr. Wilkins' words. They doubt because they've lost sight of the signs. Our role is to reveal those signs, to show them love in a tangible way. We will reflect God's beauty through our actions, our kindness, our very presence. A wave of agreement washed over the congregation, hearts beating faster at the thought of this divine calling. But beneath the excitement came a flicker of uncertainty. What if they stepped out only to be met with rejection? What if their own faith faltered under scrutiny? As if sensing their hesitation, the sunlight outside flickered brighter, casting playful shadows that danced on the floor. It breathed an aura of courage into each of them. Clara raised her hand, like a beacon. God will meet us. Every step we take will be accompanied by grace. Just as the sun breaks through the clouds, so must we break through apathy. Yes, echoed Sarah, her youthful enthusiasm renewing their spirits. Every act of love is a sign. We can do this. The fervor in the church reached a crescendo, hearts aligning in a rhythm of faith-based determination. They began to form pairs and small groups, brainstorming ideas for how to reach their neighbors. The energy was contagious, but the undercurrent of concern remained. Margaret couldn't shake the feeling that challenges were still ahead. What hearts would they encounter? What struggles would they face in the intricate tapestry of lives? As they lingered in discussion, Margaret prayed for discernment, eagerly awaiting the answers God would reveal. She was about to speak when a vibrato interrupted a deep, resonant sound echoing from beyond the door. What was that? The congregation fell silent, the air thickening with anticipation. They turned as one toward the entrance, an unspoken question hanging over them like a mysterious cloud. Who or what was making that sound? The moment felt electric with expectation. Margaret's heart raced. Was this the sign of something miraculous to come? The question lingered, pregnant with divine mystery. What awaited them just outside their beloved church? As the deep sound resonated, it filled the church, weaving in and out of the murmuring excitement. It struck a chord, tightening the air around them, vibrating with unexplainable energy. Eyes widened, breaths held. The congregation stood united in that precious moment, caught between anticipation and awe. What do you think it is? Clara whispered, her voice trembling slightly with the thrill of mystery. Thomas leaned closer to Margaret, his brow furrowed. Shall we find out? Something tells me we need to embrace this moment. The fervor of the group swelled like the tide, beckoning them to act. Nodding, Margaret took a deep breath and lifted the heavy wooden door. Sunlight flooded in, wrapping around her in a warmth she found comforting. They all stepped forward together, hearts synchronized, curiosity ignited. What they encountered outside was a sight both familiar and new. A vibrant street thrummed with activity, children laughing, elderly folk seated on porches, and young parents pushing strollers. But at the center, a peculiar gathering was forming. An older man stood, backed by a troupe of musicians, his voice deep as the ocean, calling forth a song that seemed to cradle the very air they breathed. The melody danced around them like a ribbon of light, as if heaven itself were celebrating every heart gathered there. The congregation felt it a stirring deep inside, calling them to move, to join in, to add their voices to the chorus of hope and love. Look at them, Sarah pointed excitedly. They're celebrating. We can be part of this joy. Margaret cast her gaze over the crowd, realizing that the older man was not just singing, but sharing stories woven with faith and resilience. Each note was an invitation to everyone around to come closer, to be embraced by this divine moment. This must be the sign, she said softly, her heart swelling with possibility. Let us join, Clara urged, her spirit ignited. What better way to show God's love than to share in this moment? As they moved forward, Margaret could feel a wave of encouragement surging through her community. The music was more than sound, it was a manifestation of collective joy, an invitation for the broken-hearted to step away from their shadows. Suddenly, a child ran toward them, a radiant smile brightening his small face. Are you going to sing too? He asked, eyes sparkling with hope. Margaret knelt down, meeting his gaze. Yes, we will sing. We'll sing about the goodness all around us. And just like that, the barriers of doubt began to dissolve in the face of infectious joy. The congregation spread out, embracing this sacred moment with open hearts. They joined the chorus, voices mingling with the sweet sound of celebration, carrying forth not only their stories but also the very essence of love and light. Yet, as the music soared, a shadow flickered in the back of Margaret's mind. What about those who still clung to despair? How would they share this joy with those trapped in the agony of doubt and loneliness? There was still much work to be done. Remember, Margaret's voice rang firm amidst the jubilant chaos, it's not just about today. We are tasked with nurturing this light within our community, not just for ourselves. As they sang and danced, an unexpected voice cut through. It was the old man from the stage. Let me tell you a story, he called, and the crowd quieted down. His deep, warm voice echoed like a divine whisper, threading hope into every ear. Once, I found myself lost in the darkness, and then. The spellbinding sound of his voice awakened something within each listener, a longing for connection, for understanding. Margaret's heart raced. What treasures would he unveil? She felt the transformative power of divine mystery enveloping them all. What profound truth awaited them in his tale? As they leaned closer, every soul hungered for the lesson buried within the song of his story. The old man's voice flowed like a river, smooth and inviting. And then I heard a whisper. It was faint at first, like a gentle breeze rustling leaves, but it grew clearer with each breath I took. He paused, eyes scanning the eager faces in the crowd. In that moment, hearts were beginning to pulse with anticipation. What did the whisper say? A voice shot out from the crowd, breaking the spell of silence. A ripple of chuckles stirred through the group, lightening the atmosphere, but the elder continued, a serene smile on his face. It spoke of hope, it spoke of love. That there is a light even in the darkest nights. You see, dear friends, I was wandering through my own valley of shadows, consumed by grief and longing. Yet, through those soft whispers, I found a way back to the light. The crowd leaned in closer, as if each of them were knitting their souls together through the thread of his story. Margaret felt a warmth in her chest, igniting a spark of understanding. Here was a man, once lost, now brimming with the spirit of hope. Sometimes, our hearts are heavy, he continued, his voice deepening. And we falter. But remember this, every cloud has a silver lining, every sorrow hides a promise for better days. Our struggles are not in vain, they shape us, mold us, and prepare us for the joyous moments ahead. Thomas exchanged glances with Clara and Sarah, and they nodded, each unveiling a reflection of their own burdens intertwined with the old man's words. This shared experience, this shared healing, sewn through the fabric of their community became palpable. Do not be afraid to speak your truth, my friends, the old man added, his eyes twinkling. Do not be afraid to embrace one another. For when you lay your burdens aside and let your voices rise, you are inviting the divine into your midst. Joy unfurled among the congregation like petals opening to the sun. Encouraged, one by one, they began to share their stories, vulnerable and raw, a mother speaking of her fears for her children, a young man recounting feelings of inadequacy, an elderly widow expressing her loneliness. The music swelled once more, harmonizing with the heartfelt admissions that filled the space around them. Margaret felt the energy shifting. It was as if the hurt and despair melted away, reformed into hope, buoyed by the strength found in each other's vulnerability. Tears streamed down faces, not from sadness, but from the release of burdens they had long carried alone. Together, we are stronger. Sarah exclaimed, her voice breaking through the waves of emotion. Together, we can share the light. Thomas affirmed, his pulse quickening with excitement. The gathering expanded. Men, women, and children who had once stood apart now entwined their hearts, becoming a collective tapestry woven with threads of shared experiences. It was a beautifully chaotic orchestra of life's highs and lows, transforming from pain to praise under the watchful gaze of the heavens above. As the old man concluded his tale, he raised his arms high. And so, my beloved ones, let us celebrate. Let today be not just a memory but a promise, our promise to support, love, and uplift one another in every moment of joy, and even in sorrow. As they joined together in a final crescendo of song, Margaret felt a new calling, a directive deeper than mere words could express. The celebration wasn't just about what was happening now, it was also a foundation for the future. But as the final note faded, a question flickered in the air like a candle flame: how would they carry this newfound light into their everyday lives? Something was stirring within her. The task was not complete, this was merely the beginning of a greater journey. Margaret looked around at her community and felt the shift inward. They had only begun to uncover the depths of their faith, and she could sense that more stories were waiting to be told. What were the mysteries that still awaited them, waiting to be unraveled? As she took a breath, she wondered who among them was ready to step forward next, to discover their own miraculous sign. The air was thick with a palpable energy, a sacredness that seemed to cling to every soul present. Margaret found herself caught in the wave of anticipation building among her neighbors. Conversations swirled around her, voices interweaving like a tapestry of light. Moments of quiet reflection gave way to bursts of laughter and joy, all stemming from the profound realization they had shared. Perhaps we should gather again, Clara suggested, her eyes shining with inspiration. There is so much more to share, to discover together. Thomas nodded eagerly. What if we set a time each week? A circle where we can talk, pray, and listen to one another's stories? Sometimes, it feels like we can't carry the weight alone. The notion settled among them like the first drops of rain in a thirsty land. Margaret felt her heart race. This was more than just an idea, it was a response to the whisper of hope they had all felt. They would create a new rhythm, a divine heartbeat echoing through their lives. Thus began a tradition, each week marked by gathering in the old chapel. The walls, once silent, now absorbed fragments of laughter, tears, and testimonies. They transformed into vessels of shared burdens, hope, and faith. Margaret saw the smiles that lit up Sarah's face when she spoke of her daughter's triumphs, or the sparkle in Thomas's eyes when he recounted the moments he felt closest to God while working in the fields. But it wasn't all light, shadows lingered. One evening, as rain drummed on the chapel roof, young James took a deep breath and spoke of his struggles with the unseen battles of loneliness and despair. His honesty pierced the air. "I don't know if this light you talk about is real for me," he admitted, a tremor in his voice in that instant, the warmth of the community enveloped him. Margaret reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder, grounding him with love. Instead of shying away, the others drew near, each ready to uplift him. Clara, always the empath, shared her own period of darkness with heartfelt vulnerability. In those moments, she conveyed softly, when the darkness feels overwhelming, it is others who carry the light until our own flickers back to life. As the group surrounded James, Margaret felt her faith deepening. They prayed, and a stillness fell upon them, a silence that was more than empty space. It became a shared sanctuary where the divine stirred among them, reminding each of them they were never alone. Days turned into weeks, and Margaret watched hearts mend. Each meeting unfurled new layers of healing. Yet, amidst this growth, something unexplainable began to emerge. Small signs appeared, a unity among the group that shone brightly in the local community, shared laughter that echoed beyond the chapel's walls, and stories of miraculous encounters threading through their days. One quiet afternoon, wandering away from the chapel, she paused at a clearing. Sunlight broke through clouds, casting golden beams onto the ground. Margaret felt a jolt of recognition, a sign. It wasn't merely about their gatherings that changed their lives, it was the way they transformed their hearts. This was a beautiful miracle unfolding. "What are these signs, Lord?" she pondered, looking toward the sky. "What are you revealing through us?" This question hung in the air, shimmering with possibility. The divine was opening doors, but what lay beyond? Margaret sensed they were on the cusp of something greater, a collective journey towards revelations that awaited them. Who among them was destined to reveal the next miracle? What treasures would they unearth together in their quest for wisdom and truth? Would they step forward into the uncharted paths ahead, guided by their connection to one another and the flicker of faith that drove them forward? With her heart alight, she turned back toward the church, each step invigorated by the whispers of the divine. The village awoke, kissed by the golden rays of a new dawn. As the sun shone with renewed brilliance, Margaret felt a profound stirring, a sense that today would be unlike any other. She gathered her community at the chapel, their spirits fused as one, ready to explore the signs woven into their lives. The air buzzed with anticipation. Thomas stood before them, the spark of transformation radiant on his face. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his voice strong and clear. "We've come so far together. Can you feel it? The love, the hope, it spreads like wildfire." His passion ignited a collective flame. Voices murmured in agreement, the congregation leaning in closer, hearts synchronized in faith. Yet, even as the fervor swelled, a question whispered to Margaret's heart. What awaited them beyond this moment? Her eyes sparkled with hope and uncertainty. Each life intertwined, each story shared was a sign, a marker of God's grace. She gently raised her hand to capture their attention. "Today, let us not just celebrate our victories. Let us also speak of the burdens we carry, the shadows we face. Together, we can illuminate those dark corners with our love." The congregation hung on her words. Old Mr. Wilkins nodded, his eyes glistening with understanding. "We can't be afraid to show our scars," he echoed. "That's where healing begins." The gathered souls shifted, offering their hearts, ready to share the weight of their struggles. One by one, stories began to unfold: a single mother expressing fear of failure, a veteran sharing the haunting echoes of war, a teenager grappling with the isolation of his thoughts. Margaret felt the heaviness forge a bond, threading them closer together. The holy atmosphere grew thick with empathy, each revelation bringing forth tears, laughter, and connection. Then, Clara stood, a gentle yet fierce resolve in her stance. "Each struggle we share breaks the chains of silence," she declared with spirited confidence. "Together, we can weave those struggles into healing." The words resonated, reverberating off the chapel's walls like sacred hymns ringing in celebration. At that moment, something miraculous stirred. As Clara spoke, a sweet breeze washed over them, as if heaven had tilted, pouring out its grace. Thomas, his voice brimming with inspiration, reached out. "Let us do more. Let us be these signs of light to our village. What is our next step?" Excitement rippled through the crowd. Hands shot up, ideas bursting forth like flowers eager for sunlight. They envisioned community gatherings, shared meals with the hungry, and outreach programs where stories of hope could be shared beyond their chapel doors. Margaret felt her spirit soar. "Yes. Every act of love is a sign," she echoed, buoyed by their shared energy. "We will not just carry the light, we will reflect it into the hearts of others, guiding them back to God's embrace." Plans were enacted, and the vibrant community began to transform their dreams into reality. The following weeks spilled forth with the joy of newfound purpose. They painted murals in their village, stories etched in colors that pulsed with life. They organized gatherings for healing, crafting places of refuge for lost souls. Every effort yielded a harvest of miracles. Residents who encountered despair found comfort in the embrace of this unified family, revitalized by the light shining in from the community around them. Letters poured in from those inspired by their routines of sharing, and Margaret, overwhelmed yet grateful, felt each letter was a divine reminder of their purpose unfoldment. Then one quiet evening, as the village gathered for a simple meal, a young girl approached Margaret, shy yet bold. "I've been watching you all," she shared, her voice barely a whisper. "You make it seem so easy to love. Can I be part of it too?" Margaret knelt, eyes sparkling with compassion. "Absolutely. Every heart that wishes to love matters. You're already part of this beautiful journey." The warmth spread through the room like a wave of love, embracing every soul around the table. Suddenly, a profound stillness enveloped them. The air felt thick with a divine presence, and together they bowed their heads, hearts knit in gratitude. "Lord," Margaret prayed, voice steady yet reverent, "guide our hands and hearts to be vessels of your light. May our faith be strong enough to illuminate the darkest places in our village, radiating hope to every soul seeking a sign from you." And at that moment, within the sacred cocoon of their gathering, where love thrummed like a heartbeat, Margaret sensed a powerful shift. Burdens lifted, life surged through them, and they were enveloped in a divine embrace that stitched their souls together, creating a luminescent tapestry of hope. The room seemed to swell, the walls of the chapel alive with whispers of encouragement. She could feel the old man's stories echoing through every heart, silently intertwining and creating unique signs of promise in each life. Margaret's heart brimmed with certainty. Today was not just a celebration, it was a commitment to the light, to love, and to each other. They were forever changed. As laughter mingled with purpose, she began to smile, fresh hope flooding her spirit. Their journey had transformed, but it was only just beginning, and as they stepped boldly into their vibrant future, Margaret reached deep into her heart, whispering a silent thank you to God. For every shadow that had brought them closer to the light, every testimony shared, every miracle witnessed would echo forever. The signs were here, woven into their very lives. Margaret looked around at the faces illuminated with love and purpose, knowing that each moment was sacred and that their journey was a divine adventure of faith unfolding. Don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive faith stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help reach more hearts. Comment your reactions and testimonies about this beautiful ending. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this manifestation. This is the moment to show your support. Only true servants of God understand the importance of lifting each other up through these actions.